I want to welcome everyone in. My name is Shannon Hickson, and I am the Director of Development here at the School of Information. And I'm happy for us to create this opportunity for everyone to gather and remember Dr. Barbara Immroth. I did not have the pleasure of meeting her myself. However, I've heard tons of great things, not only tonight, but of course before. And so happy to have everyone join together and remember Dr. Immroth. And so up next, or real quickly rather, I just typed this in the chat. We have a webinar set up tonight, which means everyone isn't going to necessarily have the chance to speak immediately, but later in our program, we'll open that opportunity for attendees. But for now, definitely engage with each other in the chat, and then we will monitor that. And of course, share memories, whatever you would like to share within that chat, please do so. And like I said, later on in our program, we'll create an opportunity for others to share. But we have a few family and friends and colleagues of Dr. Immroth that have a few words to share and some memories as well. First, we definitely want to bring forward the Dean of the iSchool, Eric Meyer, to welcome you and to begin the occasion or make remarks on behalf of the iSchool. Thank you.
Shannon, and welcome everyone. My name is Eric Meyer. I'm the Dean of the School of Information here at the University of Texas at Austin. It's my honor to be here this evening to welcome you to this event, remembering Professor Immroth. Like Shannon, I only came here 3 or 4 years ago, and so I didn't have the honor of working with Professor Immroth while she was here at the School of Information, but she spent 36 years here at the school and had a huge impact on the number of people that we're going to be hearing a lot of their stories tonight, of people's remembrances and the way that she had an impact on their lives and on the lives of people around her. I'm looking forward to hearing more about people's memories of Professor Immroth. I can just say that whenever someone who had such an impact on the world and on the school, on the field of library and information science that Professor Immroth did, it's always a loss to our field. It's certainly a loss to our school to have someone who's a professor emerita pass away. But I think that we're going to learn tonight how, even though someone's no longer with us, that the impacts they had live on long after they do, because of the ways that their choices, their actions, and the ways that they touch other people reverberate throughout the world. So I'm going to leave most of the time for letting people who knew Professor Immroth well speak to you and share their memories. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows here how much the School of Information is grateful to all of you for coming here to share your time to remember Professor Immroth, and how much that we value the fact that she dedicated such a great portion of her career and her time and her energy and her life to making the School of Information such a great place and making it a good place for students to learn and a good place for people to build the kind of connections that she was so expert at. You can read on our website some of the many awards that she got throughout her career. And I think that she's the kind of person that we're very proud to have as part of our heritage here at the School of Information. So I'm going to hand over to who comes next on the list. I think
Barb Jansen.
So Barb Jansen, who is the director of our school library certificate program, and has much more direct knowledge of Professor Immroth, I know, from her experiences. So Barb, over to you.
All right, thank you, Dean Meyer and Shannon. Welcome, everyone. Barbara Immroth was my friend and mentor. It's my honor to talk about how she supported me as a student and a school librarian and a friend. I know I speak for all of you who had the amazing opportunity to learn from her at UT. And for those of you who never had Barbara as a professor, allow me to show you how she supported her students. Barbara and I first met in the spring of 1988 when I audited her seminar on children's nonfiction. I wasn't enrolled in the MLIS program, but I was teaching second grade in Round Rock ISD. I'd taken the materials for children's course as an elective at the then Graduate School of Library and Information Science from a visiting professor in the summer of '84 for a Master of Education degree, and I loved the class and I loved the school. So during the seminar with Dr. Immroth, she was so inspiring. I realized that my career path could be school librarianship. I loved teaching second grade, but it didn't take too long for her to convince me that I would have even more fun and wider influence as a school librarian. So I enrolled that summer in the MLIS degree program. Throughout the years, Barbara and I formed a sweet friendship. We enjoyed the occasional dinner and meetup. She continued to support me in my work in my schools. She invited me to talk to her students at UT about what it means to be a school librarian. She invited me to present for the university for my first really large audience. And she talked me through my nerves and convinced me that the few negative reviews really weren't personal. Then Barbara began to nudge me toward a doctorate. She invited me to apply when she and Bill Lookenbill won an IMLS grant. I wasn't ready to quit my job and attend full time, so I declined, which I will always regret because I could have been in a cohort with Jennifer Moore and Don Hammerly. That didn't put her off, and several years later, she convinced me to apply again, and this time I did. I worked full time, and it took me 5 years. I was the world's oldest doc student. But with Barbara's encouragement and her sage advice as my doc committee chair, I finished just before she retired due to health reasons. She was so careful and expert in her editing and analysis of my dissertation that I had no revisions to make after my defense. I was her last doctoral student. Before she moved from Austin, I would occasionally pick her up. We would dine at Kirby Lane Cafe. She'd always order the Greek chicken, take home a doggy bag. We chatted about all things life, her sons and grandkids, her health. She gave me advice about being a professor and navigating the politics of higher ed. And now that I've assumed coordination of the school librarian program at the iSchool, I know that she left an incredible legacy for our program and for the public school kids of Texas, and some really oversized sneakers for me to fill. I believe she's still here in spirit. Boxes of books from publishers are still delivered for her, and I kind of feel her presence as I open those. I know that many of you remember her office, so filled with books and papers you could hardly find a chair, and sometimes you even had to stand, but you were always welcomed. Right now, my office looks pretty much the same. It's filled with boxes of books that were delivered while we were teaching at home during COVID, but I immediately thought of her when I finally made it back to my office this fall. In my school library management class just 3 days ago, I was showing my students how they might use a daily calendar to record their activities and interactions with teachers and students, and then use it kind of as one of many means to identify evidence of practice. And so as I displayed for my students a screenshot of 1 week of my daily calendar from 7 years ago when I was a high school librarian, there on the large screen at the end of Monday's column was an entry: dinner with Barbara Immroth at 6 o'clock. It actually stopped me in my tracks and I choked up. I had to pause and compose myself before I could continue with class. Barbara Immroth was my friend and mentor. I'll never forget her, and I know the library world won't either. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barb. Peggy.
My name is Peggy Miller. I was working for the General Libraries of the University of Texas at Austin as the Library and Information Science Librarian in 1982 when I met Barbara. She and I became fast friends because of the youth collection of the libraries and because I'd also worked in public libraries with excellent children's services for 11 years. And I taught school for a couple of years earlier. Barbara asked me to join her and Bob and Jeannie Jocks with season tickets for women's basketball. I loved being at those games and participating in activities and supporting women's athletics. Barbara and I would find time during halftime and breaks to discuss politics at UT, our families, book selections for my two nieces, and life in general. Sometimes, however, I'd have to stop her and say, "Let's watch the game now. I really need to concentrate." I relished her insights in navigating the world of higher education politics and the world we lived in at UT, especially the relationship of the libraries and the library school. She helped me learn the pathways to tenure and faculty reviews. Barbara was always mentoring and working with her students. She did an excellent job placing students in appropriate school libraries for completion of the school library's certificate program. She introduced me to Elizabeth Polk, Austin ISD's Director of Library and Media Services, and other working friends. She kept me up to date on her son's activities, their wives, and especially her 4 grandchildren, Caroline and Xander, Aiden and Nate. She was always so proud of them. Barbara thought of special activities to share with her grandchildren and loved being around her family. We always had a good time, and I enjoyed her friendship. We helped each other whenever we could. She was special. And now it's Elizabeth Polk's turn.
Thank you, Peggy. Barbara Immroth and I had been friends for a long, long time, and I have found Barbara to be a person of great faith, a great family person. I never talked to her that she did not talk to me about my children, and I talked to her about her children and grandchildren. She was also a great friend to me. She was kind and had a big heart. She was also very curious about things. She loved adventure. She and Liz Haynes and June Berry and I were often roommates at conferences. And June and Barbara would always arrange the extracurricular activities when we went to a convention. I've seen covered bridges in the northern part of the United States because of her. I've seen the pandas in the Washington, D.C. Zoo. And I've seen a lot of things that I probably never would have done had it not been for Barbara insisting that we go these places. And my daughter also went to Guadalajara to the International Book Fair with Barbara Ford, Barbara Immroth, and we had a great time at that book fair. I'd love to go back again sometime. Barbara also found out that I was working at the Bob Bullitt Museum, and she said I could work on Saturdays too. So she began to work at the museum on Saturday afternoon, the same as I did. We had a great time, and Barbara would always ride shuttle bus down to the museum, and then she wanted to wait on the, not on the curb, but on the little brick bench outside for the bus to come back to her. And I said, Barbara, they're not always on time. I don't like for you to do that. I'm going to take you home. So I started taking Barbara home from the museum every Saturday, and we had such a good time. We usually stopped to eat something, but we had lots of good conversations. Barbara loved meeting people of all kinds. She loved working at the museum because we met people from every country that came to Texas practically, and we loved meeting those. She was a very strong, courageous woman, and like I mentioned before, she loved her family. She loved those grandkids, but she never talked to me that she didn't ask about mine too, and that was good. She and I would have meetings with the campus librarians in the Austin Independent School District. And Barbara would come and bring flyers, and we would ask the librarians to tell us the good teachers they had, we'd say, don't send us the poor, the tired, the weary, the longing to be free of the students and the parents from the classrooms. We want your best teachers to go to library school. And we would have meetings for them in the afternoons, and Barbara would bring flyers about when they would need to enroll and what they would need to do to enroll. She walked them through the whole procedures. So we got many good librarians in Austin ISD because of this, because we almost handpicked some of the people who had been teachers, and you'll hear from some of them today. So Barbara has been an inspiration to me. She has been a close friend and one that I will always remember and cherish. Thank you.
When I think of Barbara, some of the words I think of are friend, colleague, mentor, role model, teacher, researcher, coach, presenter, leader, supporter, and devoted to librarianship and teaching. In addition to all that Barbara did at the University of Texas at Austin, she made many important contributions to professional associations. At the American Library Association, she was a very active participant who led some very, very important efforts. Of course, she was president of the Texas Library Association. I traveled with her to a lot of meetings of the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions. And again, there she shared her expertise and knowledge and was very well regarded by her international colleagues. So the final way I think of Barbara is as a traveler, because she and I had so many wonderful trips together. Some of the words that I think of to describe Barbara are kind, humble, thoughtful, respected, admired, loyal, and accomplished. She was a very, very special person. I'm so glad that we're having this chance to remember her and look forward to all of the things that she accomplished and all of the people that she touched. I know that her reach will continue for many years. Thank you for letting a non-Texan participate in this event.
Thank you, Barbara. Next, we have Blanche Wolves.
When the wife of a doctoral colleague of mine at Indiana University learned that I was going to join the faculty at the University of Pittsburgh, she told me that I would meet Barbara Immroth. She ended the conversation with, "You will find out that the longer you know her, the more beautiful she becomes." Barbara Immroth welcomed me into her home so often that when people couldn't find me at my apartment or my office, they called the Immroths. She helped organize a group of faculty, master's and doctoral students for potluck dinners once a month. We mourned with her when she lost her husband, Dr. Philip Immroth. At this time, Barbara was through the doctoral program coursework. Her chosen dissertation topic needed a cataloger to chair it. One evening, we sat in her living room and I told her since Phil had died, we had no faculty expert in cataloging media at Pitt. She needed a different topic. She cried and I cried and we chose a new topic. Barbara collected and analyzed her data while working full-time, a single mom with two very busy sons. During this time, Barbara started her work within professional associations. When we went to ALA, her son stayed at my home with my son, his partner, and a feisty poodle, Edward the dog. When the faculty position at the University of Texas, Austin appeared on the job board, faculty member Martha Mannheimer told her to apply. And so Barbara, Chris, and Andy moved to Texas, not caring that they were leaving behind Edward the dog. Barbara was always at ALA, becoming more and more active, especially in ALSC. ALA nominated her for positions within IFLA. and she began working internationally. Her welcoming attitude, so apparent when you were invited into her home, transferred into every position Barbara held as a faculty or association member. Always gentle, always welcoming, always choosing the right words to say, always the beautiful Barbara. She was a wonderful roommate on her various trips, both professional and personal. Sharing a room at a conference allowed you to catch up with what was going on in your lives. One of the times we shared a suite, and suite is in quotation marks, for 2 weeks at a strange hotel connected to the school building in Vilnius, Lithuania. She never complained about the terrible bed, nor teaching with every word being translated by an interpreter. But there was one very difficult moment. Barbara was granted a funded institute in Austin to introduce microcomputers to school librarians. With no space available for the week at the school, Barbara, my colleague David Lurcher, my husband and I were moving microcomputers out of the education building in the middle of the night to take them to the hotel to prepare for the institute sessions the next day when the campus police stopped us. After all, our car had Pennsylvania plates. Barbara didn't have her campus ID with her, and so she had to wake up her colleague, Bill Lucanville, to come assure the police we were not stealing microcomputers. Today, we are celebrating our always growing, more beautiful Barbara. She has been such a friend, and we do and will miss her. This time, right now, is that opportunity for us to share how much, when, where, and how she was such a wonderful part of our lives, yours and mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Blanche. Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you all. I appreciate this opportunity to be with this group. You know, Barbara was a powerful advocate, not only for services to children and young adults, but also for the students that she advised. She was my advisor twice. And I probably wouldn't have gotten into UT for my MLIS, that was in 1995, had Barbara not crashed some barriers for me after the deadline, because, you know, I made my decision kind of late. And that's, you know, but one aspect of Barbara, she was a great gate crasher. And I wouldn't be in my role now if it weren't for her and Bill writing the Youth Community Libraries grant. She was a great recruiter, a very convincing recruiter, and it took a little while for her to convince me that this is what I needed to do. And of course, now I'm very thankful for that. You know, Barbara was she was resolute, you know, determined, unwavering, formidable, able, and willing to speak truth to power. And that's a lesson she preached a lot to us. And she was unflinching, you know, even when I on one, maybe 2 occasions lashed out in frustration during my doctoral studies, she stood quietly and blinked and repeated whatever she had said and held me to my task. And, you know, I'm forever grateful for that. She was a node with many ties. Like it seems she knew everybody in my public sphere. And when I finally achieved ABD status and was writing on my dissertation, everybody I ran into or talked to, I mean, everybody would say, by the way, Barbara told me to ask you how the writing's going. And I'd go, Barbara. But for all that, she was really my inspiration. In my current role, and I'm in my current role at Dominican because of her relationship with Susan Roman, and I oversee our school librarian licensure program. I try to channel Barbara's ability to see potential in people who may not see it in themselves, and nurture that to help the profession. That's what she did for me, and I'll always be grateful for that. So thank you all, and I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Moore, one of Barbara's former students and teaching assistants. I'm going to briefly talk about my relationship with Barbara, but I would like to acknowledge what she did for me, and her presence in my life was not unique to me. She did this for so many others. So I'd like to think I'm speaking on behalf of her former students and teaching assistants. My first semester as a master's student in 2003, I sat in Barbara's class, silently questioning if I should be there. She saw potential in me that I didn't see in myself and hired me as her TA the following year. She then encouraged me to apply to the doctoral program under the Youth Communities Library grant, like Dawn. Again, I didn't feel qualified, but again, she saw potential in me that others did not see, and that I still did not see in myself. She advocated for me when needed, and she reframed my perspective also when needed. When others attempted to impede my progress, she supported and advocated for me, always. When my dissertation work slowed, she would call me at work, for a little update, a gentle nudge. She was instrumental in me being hired at Texas Women's University and then eventually at University of North Texas, where I am now. Barbara told me when she arrived at UT, she did everything required and then some to earn tenure, and that I would be doing the same. There was no other way. So I did. When my life took a temporary yet serious turn for the worse, I never mentioned it to her. She somehow just knew. I didn't have to say anything. And she didn't pry, but she would take me out to lunch just to chat because she truly cared. She continued to support me and share my accomplishments with friends, strangers, and those who doubted me after I graduated. Barbara was my mentor, my friend, and in some ways family. She was a pioneer, blazing a trail in academia, despite obstacles, both personal and professional. She was the first female full professor in the I School at UT. She was the catalyst for the successes of so many of us. She advocated for the profession, for intellectual freedom, for respect for her students, friends, and family. Barbara was kind. She modeled kindness. Barbara was the pebble in the pond that when dropped into the water, sends out one ripple, then another, and the beautiful ripples continue far beyond what any of us could have ever perceived. And for that, we are forever grateful. Thank you. Kay?
Geez. I met Dr. Immroth in the spring of 1998 at Who Wants to Be a School Librarian meet and greet that Elizabeth Polk hosted. She was so inspiring that I went home that very afternoon and told everyone I was going back to school and I was going to become a school librarian. I'd always been pegged on career exams as a librarian, but if you know me, I'm not your typical librarian type. Well, I soon learned that I am the type, and that type was what I wanted to make it. And that was through the encouragement of Dr. Immroth. She was my biggest cheerleader. She never asked me to do anything out of the ordinary, but I could feel her gentle nudging all the way through school and beyond. I'll never forget the first time I walked into her office. It was a Caldecott year, and for a Caldecott year for her, and there were 5-foot tall stacks of books that were a maze back to her desk. I was so glad when they finally gave her a closet. It was through Dr. Immroth that I learned what amazing things I could do, from hosting new potential librarians at the Gillette Library, to meeting Blanche Wolves and writing a book, to checking in our library support group, the Pills, to trusting me with her practicum students, to joining ALA and realizing the wonderful opportunities that were there because she had already nudged me all the way through TLA and all the committees you could imagine. It was all with just a little gentle nudge and a poke, and you never knew she was doing it. But the best, there was Aiden. Oh my, oh my, oh my, how we all loved hearing the wonderful stories about Aiden. She was so very proud of him. He was so very brave, and she was so very brave with him. I still have tons of MD Anderson Aiden cards, and I look at them often and think of what a special bond they had. Dr. Immroth was a very special woman who cared about all of her students, but we each felt that we were the most special. Dr. Doty? No, Dr. Roy's next.
If someone reputation is built on their friends, Barbara definitely had the A list. Your testimony and hearing the stories about her speaks to what she really meant to everyone. And I'm learning many new things about her. She was a renegade, and I found out tonight she was almost taken for a criminal. She definitely was a gate crasher, as Don has said. I'll just share a quick short story. So I've known Barbara I like 34 years or thereabouts. And I remember when she was ALSC president, and I was just a very lowly ALA member. That's as far as I had gone in ALA. And she was making those many committee appointments she had to make. And she came to my office and she said she couldn't get people to join or be a member of a committee. So she got me on the ALSC research committee. And that was my start of serving for ALA. And that chair and I got along, and that chair went to Public Library Association to chair their research committee. I followed her. And that chair then went to Reference and User Services Association research committee, and I followed her there too. So Barbara was sort of my entree in learning how to participate in ALA beyond being a member. I'll close with just a saying, and I love sayings that are indigenous. This is a Maori saying. I'll say it in English. You have gone, but your mountain is everlasting. And that's something we see every day when we run into a school librarian, or the fact that our program continues to prepare school librarians. So thank you, Barbara Immroth, once again. And I will turn this over to Dr. Doty.
Well, thank you, Dr. Roy. And I'm presuming the video will appear sometime soon, but I'll start moving. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
And we can see you.
Thank you, Shannon. I first met Barbara when I interviewed here at UT for a faculty job. And it didn't take too long before we were in a corner talking about the 1986 NCAA championship of the UT women's basketball team and arguing about the relative merits of the Big 12 versus the Big East, which is, excuse me, not the Big 12, the Southwestern Conference, before it became the Big 12, and the Big East, where my alma mater, Syracuse, was firmly ensconced. That led to a conversation about Geneseo, New York, which wasn't too far west from Syracuse, and in fact, where one of my best friends who recruited me to our discipline some 35 years ago, where she had gone to school to receive her MLS. I relied on Barbara, particularly in her role as graduate advisor and liaison for TEA certification of school librarians. She could quote chapter and verse of even the most arcane requirements and actually make them clear to other human beings. As you've heard, Barbara was not a prideful person, but she was rightfully proud about a number of things. Several of our colleagues have mentioned some of them already, but I want to mention a few others. She was particularly proud of completing her PhD study while working full-time and being a mother to two young boys. I grew up in the same sort of household, where a father's life cut short unexpectedly. And Barbara and I often talked about that, sometimes in very heartfelt terms. She was an evangelist, not just an advocate, but an evangelist for children and their achievement along all dimensions. And in particular, she wanted her students to flourish, knowing that in helping them flourish, she was helping the children of the world in a way that few of us can. As an evangelist, she passed the fervor she felt and the commitment that she lived to others. And because of that, not just my life and the life of those that have spoken already and are here on the call, but untold thousands, as Jennifer said, their lives have been made better. And because of that, the world we live in is a better place. And for that, I owe her a debt I could never repay. So thank you, Barbara. And I'd like to hand this off to Susan Cisco.
If I may interrupt first, I know we went over a tiny bit on our sharing of stories. However, we kind of figured that. Chris and I laughed about it actually, that we probably would go over our time, which was a bit ambitious. But before we move to Dr. Cisco, is there anyone in the chat that has joined us today that wants to share a quick memory or two? If you would raise your hand or definitely share in the chat. And if not, it's okay, but wanted to definitely create that opportunity before we move on. Jess, if you will give Linda the opportunity to speak, that'd be wonderful.
I just allowed her to speak. So Irene, go ahead when you're ready.
Hello, everyone. Irene Owens. It's so good to hear from my former colleagues and a few students. As many of you know, I came to UT, the first person of my cultural background, in 1995. And it was around 1997 or 8. And I had read an article in the paper about Dr. Barbara White, who was the dean of the School of Social Work, who had had a problem in buying a house in Austin. And I had shared with Barbara, among many things, that I was interested in buying a house because, one, I had intended to earn tenure, and I didn't know how long I was going to be at the University of Texas, but I certainly was enjoying my stay. Barbara said to me, Irene, I will put you in touch with someone and you won't have a problem buying a house. She did. The two women who were the realtors helped me, and among other things, I was so grateful to Barbara for her sensitivity and for her help. She and I shared many lunches together along with Bill Lukenbill, whom I still remember fondly. But Barbara was one of those very, very special people who had such an empathetic heart. She really loved people and especially children. I intend to contribute to her fund because her life's work needs to live on in the minds and hearts of so many others. So thank you all, those who are on the line who gave me such a wonderful experience at the University of Texas at Austin. But Barbara Immroth was very, very special to me and shall remain so. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else that would like to have remarks? And if not, we can move on. Oh,
yes.
sorry.
Can you hear? Yes. Hi, I'm Linda Plevak. I'm in San Antonio, Texas, and I'll do my best to be very brief. I always wanted to be a librarian, and I had gone to UT Austin, and as luck would have it, I finished my first semester and got my financial aid notice, and the financial aid office had used my my work from the year before, where I was working full time, and they said I was no longer qualified for financial aid. And I had lived in Houston and I'd moved to Austin and I had no job. And I was going to have to leave library school. And I remember going into Barbara's office and in tears, and she calmed me down and she hired me. She had been hired to do fact checking on a book, and she gave me part of what she had earned to be able to keep going. And then the next semester, she hired me as her teaching assistant. And I was able to not only be her teaching assistant, but then also for Amanda Williams, who I know also wanted to be here and is very important. And that was just one of many times she kept me going. I did become a librarian, and she got me my start in ALSC, which I am still very active in and proud of to be a member of. And she also wrote countless recommendation letters for me in my career. But one of the things I wanted to share, I was thinking about all of these things after I'd heard the news from Chris, and thinking about her family and all she had talked about so many times with me. And I was out running and I was thinking of all those things. And then I thought about the last time probably I went to Austin, and she was volunteering at the Bob Bullock Museum, and she knew I had a love for monarch butterflies, my husband and I, my husband Antonio, who's also a librarian. And so the IMAX movie about finding the monarch butterflies in Mexico was at the Bob Bullock Museum, and she invited me to come. She took us there. And part of that movie, they talk about how when the monarchs return to Mexico, it's around the time of the Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos. And the people in Mexico believe it's their returning ancestors. And that's why they love the monarch so much. And as I was driving, I had just driven home and I just pulled into my driveway. And I thought to myself, I'm going to look for a special monarch this fall. And it would remind me of Barbara. And I got in my car, and there I saw a monarch. Now, that's not that unusual, but it's rare. And I just wanted to share that because I want everyone this fall, when they see a monarch, to know she's still here. And she's always going to be with us. And this scholarship, where she's continuing the legacy of children's librarianship, is just going to be forever. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. So now, Dr. Cisco, if you want to come forward and share.
Hi, everybody. I am forever grateful for Barbara's friendship. When I came to Austin in 1989 to work on my PhD, she was one of the very first persons that I met. And I was an older than usual student, so I wasn't quite sure how I would fit in. She befriended me. We became friends, although I was not in children in school librarianship specialty. I was doing records and information management, but we became fast friends. We walked together, we dined together. We went to a step contest together. We went to tap dance shows together because that's my passion. We spent a lot of time together on purely a friendship basis. After graduation, I was invited to be a lecturer in the graduate program, speaking about records management. And I had never taught before. And so starting out at the graduate school level, I didn't have experience or expertise in knowing exactly what to do. But as Dr. Doty mentioned, Barbara knew that graduate school like the back of her hand. And any problem I had or any question I had, she knew she had 99% of the answers. And if for some reason she didn't have the answer, she knew how to get the answer. And that was extremely helpful to me as a brand new graduate level lecturer. I ended up teaching 10 years, and I really appreciated every moment of it. Can we have the next slide, please? So to honor her work and our friendship, Peggy Miller and I collaborated with Shannon at the school, the School of Information at the University of Texas at Austin to establish the Barbara F. Emerita Endowed Excellence Fund in Children's and School Librarianship. If we can raise $25,000, it will provide workshops and professional development training with specialist expertise in children and school librarianship. But if we can raise $100,000, then there will be endowed fellowships in her name in perpetuity. And so what we're here today at the end of this very touching and emotional memorial to our dear friend and colleague, we need your help. Next slide, please. We need your donations. You can donate online at this link here, or if you can mail a check to the School of Information. And we really encourage this. This would mean so much to Barbara to know that her legacy lives on in children and school librarians in perpetuity. Thank you, Shannon.
You are quite welcome. And we're going to add the link that you see there in the chat as well. So you will have opportunity if you are interested in giving. Definitely, we greatly appreciate that. And next up, I would like to give Chris and Andy an opportunity to share any remarks or thoughts about what we shared tonight.
Hello, I'm Andy Immroth. I just wanted to say that I am so grateful for this opportunity to hear everything that's been shared. And I know Mom would be grinning from ear to ear, hearing the stories and just really enjoying this honor. And it really is an honor. And it makes me so happy that you want to come and meet and tell these stories and share it with us. So thank you for that. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Okay. I want to say thank you as well for sharing all these memories. It's been great to hear them, and some of them I know and some of them I don't. So that's nice. I wrote down a few things. I'll just do a few memories I have of my mom and books and libraries and encouraging children to read. I'll just share a little bit of what I was thinking about. One of the things my mom always did was encourage us to participate in the summer reading programs. And I was never a very good reader, especially as a young child, but I made my way through a bunch of books every summer. And I still have the first certificate here. I'll show you if you can see that, of my first summer reading program. When I finished that when I was 6 years old, and I was terribly proud. So I framed it, and I think my mom was proud too, because it was a real struggle for me to read through 10 books in the summer when I was 6. As a grandmother, my mom would often take my kids on a walk to the neighborhood library, and oftentimes she was the one to get them signed up for the summer reading program. She was always working on developing the next generation of readers. So those are some of my memories tonight.
Thank you so much, Chris and Andy and everyone tonight for joining. I'll come back on camera for a bit. I appreciate everyone. We worked together to pull together the virtual event. Thank you for your patience with our technology. As we probably have all learned over the last year and a half, Zoom and whatever other tool that we use is not always on our side, but I'm glad we were able to gather. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm actually going to try and pull up a video of some of the images or photos that we had of Dr. Immroth. And so while I'm working with the technology, I will disappear. And if you would like to chat amongst yourselves, please do. And then hopefully I'll be able to have that pulled up shortly. But thank you again, everyone, for joining. And Dean Meyer, before I get into this, do you have any final remarks or?
Let me just turn the camera back on. So no, I just enjoyed this evening and loved hearing these stories. I think it's quite clear the impact that Professor Immroth had on so many lives. And one of the messages that's being shared at the University of Texas by our new president, he had his inauguration last week, was that he wants the University of Texas to focus on the impacts and be the highest impact research university. Well, clearly, Professor Immroth had a huge impact on many people's lives and was already anticipating that direction that the University of Texas would take on making sure that the actions we take and that the choices we make in our lives have impact on others. So thank you very much for attending, and thank you for being able to share this evening, remembering someone who had such a great influence on so many people and really represented the University of Texas and the School of Information so well and so ably.
Thank you, Dean Meyer. I think I have the video. I don't know if you will see or hear sound. I hope so, but if not, please enjoy the photos. And thank you again, Chris and Andy, for pulling these together. There were some treats that I know, or to me, they were treats to see these photos that you all had in your archives, but also we found some good ones in some of the iSchool digital assets as well. Thank you again, you all, and enjoy. And please feel free also to linger as the video goes if you want to hang, and again, still share via chat or come on to camera if you're able, please do so. Thank you. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. Panelists, do you all have any final comments or thoughts? It's been a pleasure working together to pull together this event tonight. Thank you all for everything, and I hope everyone is pleased with how the evening went tonight. Technology challenges aside.